On in order, please. Item 2.0 is adoption of the agenda, and we do have an addendum. It'll be at your table there. So accept a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
I move to accept the agenda as amended.
Motion by Joanne. Second by Lou. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Carries 7-0. Item 3.0 is approve the minutes of the September 16 special meeting and the September 16 regular meeting. Is there any discussion on the minutes? If not, accept a motion to approve them.
Move to approve those minutes.
Motion by Jeff.
Second.
Second by Roger. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Carries 7-0. 4.0 is consideration of bills and warrants. Those pages 9 through 34 in your packet. Any questions or concerns on any of the bills? If not, we accept a motion to approve as presented to you.
Also move.
Motion by Olivia,
Second.
second by Joanne. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Carries 7-0. Hearing of requests and suggestions from citizens, I see no one, I don't believe. So we'll move to 6.0, which is a special report from Dr. Brian Jordan, and I believe that Sue Gibbons is going to accompany him. Yep. This is on our strategic planning meeting. So, Brian, it's all yours.
Is this on? Okay. All right. Well, welcome. Thank you all for the opportunity to come back this evening. I'm Brian Jordan with the Kansas Association of School Boards. With me this evening is Sue Gibbons, also with Leadership Services as part of the Kansas Association of School Boards. The two of us facilitated your strategic planning work, or the initial strategic planning meetings that happened here in your community back in mid-September. You should all have in front of you the packet that we sent that's just titled the Initial Strategic Planning Document. My goal tonight is to go through this and kind of explain the process of how we worked with the community members that were involved, how we arrived at the information that's in here, but then also kind of outline what the next steps are for the board as well as the district administrative team and district groups as they work to formalize the strategic plan. So we met with the community groups on September 19th and September 26th, and we had 31 people participate each evening. And I think it was the same 30 people, but we had one person different the second night than the first night. There was one that couldn't make it the second night, and one that was there the second night that wasn't there the first night. So as the participants came in, we put them into groups of about 4 to 6 people, let them choose where they wanted to sit. And then we kind of set the stage the first night to have them thinking about the current reality of things happening in the school district and kind of get their perceptions. And so to start off that evening, Ms. Ray gave a quick update on some of the achievement data in the district and talked a little bit about some of the priorities and also some of the challenges. And then we had the community members work through the process of defining what it is they want the story to be about their schools and their community over the next 3 to 5 years. And we told them to think about a 3 to 5 year window because as we work through this process of strategic planning, that's kind of the time frame that we tell the group that they should be thinking about as you put your plans together. It's about a 5-year plan, and then your reality of things around that plan have shifted enough. You probably need to be revisiting those things. So in your handout, if you go to the page that has vision for our students and schools, this was the group's response to the question, what is the story we would like others to tell about our district in 3 years? So as you go down through there, you'll notice there's some of the items on that list that have a number in parentheses out there. That simply means that was multiple groups that shared that or a similar idea related to that. So as you look down through there, number one on their vision for their students and schools, it included community involvement, having students give back, make it a part of our culture within our schools to have students volunteering, including elementary, middle, and high school, and help students to understand how this community and this town works. That was all 6 groups shared that as a vision that they had for their kids. Some other items that were very high on that list, they want to see continued networking and engagement between the businesses and the schools, or collaboration. That was very high on the list. They also believe very strongly that we need to continue to focus on career readiness and expanding opportunities for kids around, they use the term vocational education, trade schools, college. Not every kid should even try to go to college, but really think about what each kid wants to pursue and figure out the best way to prepare them for that future. Social emotional support and services was also a very popular one. And then career life training. So I think the term that got used jokingly was adulting. Help our kids become better adults when they graduate from our system. And then finally, they want to continue to have a curriculum that's engaging and evolves and is relevant for kids within the school. So those were the things that on that first night they told us, hey, this is the vision that we want for our kids when they graduate. So we use that as kind of the guiding light as they have their conversations over the 2 nights of think back to that vision that you want for your kids. Now, think about your current reality of things that will help you get there or things that are maybe barriers to that vision. So as you continue to go into the packet, you'll come to a section that talks about strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So what we had the group do was think about, as you think about your current reality within your district, what do you perceive to be strengths? And I emphasize the term perceive. This is, remember, a group of 31 people that were made up of teachers, community members, business owners, and so the weighting of that group was towards folks that were not employed by the district. So sometimes they would latch onto something or bring something up that they maybe didn't have as deep of understanding as somebody that works in the schools every single day would have. And so that's why I emphasize it's a perception at this point. So we had them reflect on what the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats would be of the district. We used the same process and we focused just on strengths first, had each group come up with their top 5 or 6 strengths, then we shared out around the room. And then those items that you see there that have the numbers in parentheses, those were things that crossed multiple groups. So if there's a 4 out in front of that or a 5 out in front of that, that means 5 groups mention that as a strength within the district and the community. So you can kind of take a look at that, and I'll answer any questions that I can related to that. We just took what they gave us and put it on here verbatim. We maybe obviously cleaned up some spelling, but these are their thoughts, unfiltered is another way to think about that. So I'll let you take a minute to look through strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats that are on those 2 pages, and try to field or answer any questions that you might have over those.
Well, Brian, one thing that's really sticks out in my mind is the very last bullet where these people spent 6 hours with you two, and they're asking for more meetings like this.
Yeah.
That's in my mind, that's a positive.
Yeah.
That tells me that we've got some engagement with our community and with our patrons, and that's a good sign. I didn't think they would say something like that.
Yeah, this group was very happy that they'd been asked to participate. They really took their role very seriously.
Yeah.
They threw out some ideas. They asked some difficult kind of questions rhetorically in the meetings, and they said they really valued this opportunity. So that was listed there as something to consider in the future. How do we continue to engage these folks and make sure that we're hearing some of their voices?
I think we need to get some of them on our site councils.
Yeah.
You know, because we do have, maybe we just haven't asked the right people. So that might be a.
Yeah, and what we often tell groups with site councils is if you can get the right mix of people in there with the right work to do, you can get a lot of engagement and a lot of connections with those things. And so that might be an opportunity to pull some of these folks in the future.
And it's definitely an area that's evolving with the KISA accreditation system. Those site councils have a really more pronounced role than they've had in the past. They were supposed to always have that role.
Right.
KISA really helps outline it. So I see some change coming in that across the state.
So if you continue in the packet, you'll come to a page. At the top of the page, it says themes identified September 19th. So over the course of about the first 2.5, 3 hours of the first evening, we had them work through the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. We had those posted around the room. And then we had them, kind of the wrap-up activity for that evening, we had them go around and identify what are themes that cut across these 4 things, or themes that came up with that vision that you all shared at the beginning of the evening. And so I'll quickly kind of run through these because these kind of set the stage for the future work that the committee did on the second night, and then the steps going forward for the strategic planning. So 7 groups mentioned that one theme that cut across all of the work that they did the first night was continuing to network between families, business, community, and city. We need community business buy-in to the work of our schools. We need to continue to collaborate and use community resources, and one specifically mentioned was the LCC connection. The second most popular theme that was mentioned at the end of that first evening was poverty, response to culture. We have increasing high-risk population, poverty mindset, poverty socioeconomic issues. So in other words, that was in part of the discussion that was had over the course of the evening. There were 2 of them that cut across, 4 groups identified as themes that cut across: overcoming and changing perceptions, perception of breaking negative perceptions. I'll take a moment here to point out the people in that room, they were very complimentary of a lot of good things that are happening here, and they continue to talk about how do we get our story out, how do we share the successes that we're experiencing in our schools. And there was a lot of passion in the room to help share that story, and so that they really feel like we've got to try to take on some of that negative perception that may be out there around our schools and the work that we do in our schools.
There was a lot of frustration expressed with perception as opposed to what they knew, even in their limited knowledge of inside workings, was really happening.
Yep. So another common theme mentioned across the 4 groups mentioned this as a common theme is continue to develop vocational skills, tech, and life skills. We want to create contributors to society, utilizing the individual student and planning focus. We do a little bit of preemptive conversation in that first evening, talking about what the state board has for a vision, what the state board has as expectations. And so individual plan of study is one of those things that the state board expects every kid entering into high school should have a individual plan of study process in place for them. And this group recognized that as something important that we need to continue to build on. Then the next items here, 3 groups identified this as a common theme. There's competition between districts and competing districts. We have a slightly declining population. 2 groups identified community. There's a lot of community support, volunteers from the community and involvement with the community. And then 2 groups identified that we have strong core teachers, building, and administration. We need to continue to retain our students and our teachers. So that was kind of the wrap-up activity at the end of the first night, and that set the stage then for when they came back the second night. Sue and I and our staff put together the box that you see there at the bottom. So we took those themes and we just basically put some terms to them to try to kind of frame those into some common strategic plan focus areas. So when you look at that bottom box, it's basically the top box or top themes that they identified with us putting a label as a focus area out there to the left-hand side. So that first focus area that we basically labeled it as connecting and collaborating with stakeholders. And those were the first 2 themes of networking and community support. The next strategic plan focus area that we identified based on the themes they shared with us was developing responsive culture and supports, meaning that we need to make sure that we built the right culture for our kids that are entering our schools and that we have adequate supports in place to meet those needs. The next theme that was identified was creating a positive climate. So this gets at those 2 themes of challenging perceptions that are out there and that idea of competition between districts. The 4th theme that was identified or focus area that was identified was a student-centered educational program. So how do we make sure that the educational program that we put in place is focused on their needs and what their next step in life is? And so that gets at that individual planning focus, that gets at putting together those pathways that they need to experience their success when they transition away from our schools. And then the final strategic plan focus area is staff recruitment, retention, and development. And that tags with the theme that they identified of we have strong core teachers, building administration, and we need to continue to retain students and teachers.
And the goal is that you can have 5 concise areas that you as a board member will be able to relate to, like at the top of your head. You won't have to go into the weeds figuring out, well, where does that fit? If you can have those 5 easily identifiable areas that are areas of focus, it really helps you focus your work around the board table. So we wanted to make sure that you had that and that it was in terminology that's recognized statewide, even through our accreditation process.
Yeah. So we shared those focus areas with them when they came back at the start of the second evening. And then as you continue to go through the packet, you'll come to a page that has a graphic on it. We call that the What Matters Most framework. And we spent a little time in the first evening, and we took a little time in the second evening connecting the themes that they identified with what best practices or what great districts are doing out there. So that graphic of the What Matters Most framework, I know I've visited with your board about that in the past, but it really talks about the 5 key areas that districts need to make sure that they have alignment in to ensure that all kids' needs are being met as they progress through your system. To the right of that circular graphic, this is some of the research on the top influences that impact student success in schools, and it's broken down at the school level. Those are the top 5 key areas. At the classroom level, the key 3 areas, and then for students, what we have to account for that has the greatest impact on their success in schools. We plugged this in here, not because we wanted the community members to try to make those connections, but it's an intentional connection for when the district administration starts to put together the actual action steps and strategies. This is right there, and they can see where those pieces connect. So that's what this page is showing you. It's just simply connecting those themes that were identified and those focus areas that were identified to kind of where the best practices fit within schools. So then as you continue to transition to the back of this handout that we gave you, you're going to see it looks kind of like a template, and that's intentional. This is kind of a starting point for your district teams to work on putting the actual steps in place to play out or to fulfill out this 5-year strategic plan. So as you're looking at this, the first one that comes up there is connecting and collaborating with stakeholders. So what we had each group do is they had to go through each of the 5 themes and as a table talk about, okay, so why is connecting and collaborating with stakeholders important? So you'll see right there underneath that the purposes that are listed, that's what community members said was important as to why connecting and collaborating with stakeholders matters. So those are their words that they shared with us. We think that's important to have in there. So when the strategic plan gets developed and this begins to get rolled out to community and to staff and to the board, that's a reminder of why we're looking at those things. So again, that's the community's words of why they believe that connecting and collaborating with stakeholders is important. At the bottom of that chart, you start to get into some what we call what's it look like. And so if we're connecting and collaborating with stakeholders over the course of 5 years, these were ideas that were shared by the community members in the sessions around what they would like to see over 3 to 5 years. These are important to consider by the district teams that put their work together and putting the plan together, because this is what the community is going to kind of look for as that plan gets rolled out and gets executed. This is also a great guide for you as board members as you're thinking about that plan being developed. This is a great way to look at it and say, okay, does that really get us to those things that the community members said was important? On the flip side of that, it also provides you guys some cover, some support, if you want to call it that. As change happens in communities and in schools, there's often resistance and pushback. This spells out very clearly what people would like to see happening for their kids and in the schools and the community. And so that's something you should continue to bring back and share with people. Hey, this is what the community said with this strategic plan. So I'll be quiet and let you kind of look through those 5 areas there at the back. Again, what we did was simply take their words, clean it up, put it into this template, which then will allow your district teams to begin to formalize, okay, so what are the actual strategies and actions of how we're going to make these things actually happen.
And you'll see in that left-hand column how many groups identified those specific what that looked like, those gauges of whether or not you were getting there. And I think that's important to look at as well. Look at how many groups And not surprising on that first one, how many groups hit with the community awareness and beating that perception. There were 3 of the groups that identified that, so.
Yep.
That's helpful in seeing the importance of that area. And they were not working together.
Yeah.
So that makes.
Yeah, the second night, the structure is a little bit different than the first night. Is basically they come in and they worked in their groups of 7, and they basically worked independently. So they came up with these ideas on their own, and this just shows how much overlap there was in conversations between the different groups that were in the room. So I'll be quiet again and let you look through that. Are there any questions or comments that you have or would like to share?
I do have a kind of a, observation or question, you guys. When I think of a SWOT analysis, which you've done here, I think about, all right, let's take a look at our strengths and let's take a look at our opportunities and where can we really make some ground here. And then on the flip side, and at least from a business perspective, let's take a look at those weaknesses and make sure that we mitigate those threats that align with those weaknesses. And I see that when you go to your strategic plan focus areas, which started you the next night, I can see kind of how you attempted to do that, especially on the strengths and the opportunity side, which is obviously textbook. But as a school district, a lot of our weaknesses are inherent to our population. A lot of our threats are inherent to our population and to our student, and we have to serve those people. We can't, as good as a business can do, mitigate to the same extent, because we serve who we serve.
Right.
And I don't know whether you have thoughts on that or not. I mean, that's one of the things that I'm concerned about, because I do see a lot of overlap with weaknesses and threats, and I don't like that.
Right.
It makes me really concerned, which is not like I wasn't concerned before you guys did this. It just reinforces that people in the community see the same things I'm seeing. And so.
So I think a couple of thoughts on that. What we tell boards and we tell districts is, how do you build the right structure and the right system that takes into account those weaknesses and those threats? Because that's who you are. So how do you build a system that's responsive to meeting those needs and making sure that you're being proactive and you've got those supports in place? Because if you don't ever put those down and don't ever talk about them, they kind of just stay the elephant in the room that nobody really wants to try to get their arms around. And so we believe it's important to have those in there. Simply from a standpoint of, we can drive down the road and look at another district and what they're doing, but the reality is we have to take whatever we see out there as a possible strategy or an action and make sure that it connects and addresses some of those weaknesses and threats.
I also think that in order to get to some of the goals that you have here, that's going to happen. I mean, there's no question that you're going to have to go back and revisit some of those weaknesses and threats in order to even make progress. So that'll be inherent in that operational plan that you develop after you have your strategic plan. Otherwise, you're not going to get there.
Yeah.
And so another tag on that, Mr. Quinn, is it Dr. Quinn?
You call me, I've been called a lot worse. You can call me whatever you want to call me.
I was going to call you.
Sure.
Yeah.
Depends on which side of the fence I'm on.
Yeah. If you go to that page where we put that graphic on there, you could dive in and dig into some of the details of this. These two pieces of research that we frequently reference there. A couple that I'll point out in that circular graphic, providing whole child student supports, is about creating systems for kids so that their social emotional needs, their economic situation, their home life doesn't become the barrier that keeps them from having the academic successes. And so you can unpack those, and there's ideas or strategies that districts need to think about if they're dealing with a high percentage of students that come from a background that is challenging. What should you be looking at? And so that's where these pieces come into play. And again, we put these in there for your admin team to kind of have as a starting point to dive into, okay, we know these are weaknesses and threats. What's challenge? What does the research say about addressing some of those challenges? So that's another reason that we plug those in there, so we don't just drop this off and say, okay, go figure out how to deal with those weaknesses and threats, because there's districts out there that have effectively addressed those things. And so what can we learn from their experiences and take those experiences to address what we have in our district?
And a large number of your threats were around the area of perception. And so that's going to be some hard legwork and a really coordinated plan that allows those to rise to the surface when you make goals.
In regard to Jeff's point, it's a valid point, I appreciate that. But when I went to Garfield School today, I got to thinking, I'm a retired high school teacher. I kind of know high school stuff. Elementary is not my forte. These patrons might have a student in second grade or eighth grade. So to understand the whole system is almost impossible to some degree, or difficult at most. But when I walked into three different classrooms, I saw students that were so engaged in the second grade, I couldn't tell you which ones were poor, which ones were foster kids. I just saw kids that were engaged, despite the fact that we have inherent problems in our district.
Right.
And I told that teacher, I said, I'm flabbergasted. And then she had something on the bulletin board about writing. I forgot the term. Expository writing. I said, do you mind if I take a picture of that? This is a second grade. So she's got those kids so engaged, they're doing expository writing in a second grade. So those barriers I did not see. They exist, I didn't see them.
Right.
And we shouldn't. There's no reason we should see them. It shouldn't.
And you saw the same thing when you...
It shouldn't matter if they're poor, if they're foster.
If you've built the right culture and responsive system, those shouldn't.
So we need to work on our perception of the children, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. We've got to make sure that we're not prejudging or anything like that.
And if you have the right programming in place to support all students, that's going to happen.
Exactly.
And the principal told me that we've spent the last 3 years focusing on the social, emotional needs of our students because of the high-risk students that are in Parsons. And now the staff that are going to put a laser focus on making sure that all students are successful academically. Period.
Yeah, and you've got to continue to maintain that development of those social emotional needs to excel academically.
Exactly.
And again, that gets right back to that, creating the right culture, creating the right supports in your system, and it's what we do. It's not a reinvent the wheel situation every time a challenge comes up, but this is just how we do business in Parsons schools.
So under this creating a positive climate, someone hit the jackpot when they said we need to get people in our buildings or we need some outreach programs. We have to do a much better job, and I think we're working on that.
Well, and the purpose of a strategic plan the most important purpose of a strategic plan is that everybody in your boat is rowing in the same direction. And that's what this does for you. But it takes a lot of work. It's going to take a lot of detailing to make sure that it's understandable when it hits the classroom level and that people understand where you're headed.
Yeah, and you will get pushback as you evolve and you try to improve and push your students, your staff, the change for your parents and some of your community members. You'll get pushback, but this again is part of the process. We put this together so that you have this to stand on and say, look, we engage the community. This is what they want for their kids in their schools. And Sue is right. This is the initial step, and the next step is the district teams working together to figure out, okay, what do we know best practice is around creating that positive culture? You probably have several things going already because of the work you've been doing around ACEs and social emotional support. How do we continue to build on that and make that what we do, not just the isolated incidents of how we handle situations? So that kind of leads to the last part of this, is the next steps are over the next several months, the district teams will be taking this and beginning to unpack, okay, so what does this really mean? There's some terms in here that the community members said we want, I can't remember, but we want critical thinkers, or we want somebody that's a problem solver, or deeper thinkers. So what does that mean for us? And so we'll have to do some defining of that within the district, and then figure out how do we develop that intentionally for every kid.
And there'll have to be some analysis of current programming and seeing if it's making the impact you want, or if it has the potential to make the impact that you want. Do you discard some things along the way? Do you keep some things that are making progress, or are there new things that you need to look at? And that takes so much time to identify the progress that's possible with those.
So your next steps as a board are to think about, okay, how are we going to make sure that this thing stays in front of us, stays fresh, stays relevant? Lori and her team are going to start to go to work to put the pieces of the actual plan in place. But what we tell districts or tell boards is you need to make this part of your just ongoing monitoring of the work that's happening in your district. So whether that's a monthly connection to one part of the plan and a conversation around that, or it's every 2 months we spend an extra hour and we have a study session and we talk about progress. These things only work if both parts of the system are actually talking off the same piece of paper. And you guys have all seen our graphics of the two circles, the district administration and the board. They only overlap if we have ongoing conversation around what success looks like, and we clearly are looking at the same piece of paper, so to speak, as we evaluate our successes and progress. So that is the next steps. It's Lori and her team working on teasing out some timelines, assembling the district teams that'll be putting together their heads and thinking about what the best approaches are to addressing these, doing some evaluation of current programming that's working and building upon some of those pieces.
Then you as a board will determine a cadence of accountability. How do you want to have reporting on your goals and your strategies, and how often do you want it? And so Mike will work with how does that look as far as your structure of meetings goes, or how you make sure that you have that cadence, because that's critical that you as a board know routinely how we're doing.
Good news is you have us to help you with that. So we're here to support you all through that process. We're a resource to Lori and her team as she works through that process. Be happy to answer. Sue will answer any questions that you all have at this point.
One thing, you said, Sue, accountability. We are going to be accountable for the next generation's accountability, and that's a pretty awesome task.
It's huge responsibility for 7 people who make a whole lot of money for serving on the board.
Hey, candy.
We've got candy.
You got a bottle of water there too.
Which we appreciate.
Yeah.
Right on a tap from Michigan.
Yep.
Any other questions, comments?
Much appreciated.
You bet.
Thank you.
It's the start, I think, some pretty important work for your district.
You need to be really proud of the people that you had in that room on those 2 nights. They care about your district, and they care from all different perceptions from you. We had retired people there who no longer have students in the system, and we had people who don't yet have children in the system, and those who do, and everybody in that room. The recurring theme was community, and I think Parsons and your school district need to be proud that was the number one thing that kept coming back.
It's a good place to be. It's a good place to start.
Thank you, Brian and Sue. Appreciate you coming down and
Thank you.
doing this for us.
Yep.
Okay, we're at 7.0, which is report of superintendent of schools. So, Lori, it's yours.
All right, okay, so in October, it's National School Principals Month, and it's also National Bullying Prevention Month, so the schools will be doing different bullying things to highlight the prevention programs, and Red Ribbon Week and all of those things as well this month. We've got elementary parent-teacher conferences coming up this week, tomorrow and Thursday, so those are from 4 until 7:30 of an evening. You should have already gotten a time probably from your Lincoln or Garfield kiddos, and then Guthridge kiddos, it's open. So we hope everyone can turn out for that. That's an important time. October 23rd, it's School Bus Driver Appreciation Day. And so we have something special for all of our drivers and our monitors that ride our buses every day and drive our buses every day. They do a good job. We appreciate the work that they do. Make transportation easy. So on October 30, well, coming up next, October 28th, school will not be in session that day. So that's the parent-teacher conferences, those 2 evenings that we work, that's the comp day for teachers on the 28th. On the 30th, that's early dismissal. And so there'll be some professional development that afternoon in the buildings. That's a very short amount of time, so that those early dismissals are typically in the buildings. Now, last week, I didn't put this on here. Last week on Friday, we did grades in the morning and then in the afternoon. Each of the buildings did professional development. And a portion of that, part of our district social emotional team, and they're going to come in November to present of all the different things that are happening at one of the board members' requests. They had a group of them, representatives from each of the schools had gone to a Ruby Payne conference in Wichita. And so they came back as part of their charge and then went to each of the buildings and shared that information. I'll put their PowerPoint, I got it this afternoon. I'll put it in your view this week. It was really good. Okay, so doing some of that. Let's see, our next regular board meeting is November the 18th. Be right here at 6 o'clock. Then we have Thanksgiving recess, the 27th, 28th, and 29th. We also have the KASB annual convention in Wichita coming up, December 6th, 7th, and 8th. If anybody wants to go, I know Mike's going to go, but we can take someone else as well if you'd like to. Enrollment updates. I wanted to give you just a couple of updates. All right, and it says a final count reported on the superintendent's organizational report. So the superintendent's organizational report is based on the building principal's report. So they each do a report, and then based on that information that's generated, it pre-populates some of the superintendent's report. Now, the number of kids that you see, head count, that isn't always the same number that shows up for FTE or full-time equivalent, because our preschool kids count as only half. And then if we have maybe a special ed preschool, well, then they count as a whole. So those numbers aren't always the same. So I think it's easiest if we just look at the head count. And so in 2017, our head count was 1288. In 2018, our head count was up 12 to 1,300. And this year on September 20th, our 2019 count was up to 1,328. So that was an additional 28 students over last year. So in the last 2 years, we have gained 40 students, which I think is significant. The trend had been down, had been, decreasing in our student population, and then the last 3 years, that trend has begun to go back up. And I think a lot of that can be attributed to the fact that we have a lot of really good things going on, and people are seeing those things, and we can get more of that information out.
So are the preschools at capacity?
They are at capacity.
Are there people waiting to get in?
Well, there were, yeah. Are there still? Yes.
Enough to have another classroom?
Do we have 14? Not 14.
Well, 12, 10, 2?
No, I would say probably around 5. And then for 3-year-olds, it's probably even more. I haven't looked at it probably for a couple of weeks. I look at it when we have a spot.
So can you combine 2 and 3-year-olds or not?
Well, we
3-year-olds?
No, we just do 3 and 4-year-olds. And we have not combined 3 and 4-year-olds just because developmentally, a 3-year-old and a 4-year-old are very different from one another. And so in order to make sure that we meet everyone's needs, we've kept 3 and 4-year-olds separate, just simply because of the academic focus and just the behaviors and social things that a 3-year-old needs compared to a 4-year-old. So we do have one section of 3-year-olds that we offer, and then the rest of our sections are all 4-year-olds. I take that back, we have 2 sections, because we have our special ed, Kids First, which special needs 3-year-olds, and then one other.
So Kids First is 3-year-olds.
We have one in the morning, and then their afternoon are 4-year-olds. So, but those numbers look good, I think. The other thing, the Business Operations Leadership Development Program, that's the bold training that I was selected to participate in. There were 20 superintendents or administrators from across the state. We had our first meeting last Thursday, and sometimes it just works out where when you go to a professional development, it's just what you need to hear. Like you're in the right spot at the right time. And I really felt like that last week. And so I was able to spend part of Thursday and part of Friday with a group of 19 other district administrators or building administrators from across the state, because we're going to be able to focus on facilities master planning, technology planning, finance strategies, procurement processes, school security, risk management, all those things that they don't teach you in superintendent school, really. A lot of that they don't. So just the business and the organization and operations. So I'm excited to get to participate in that.
So you all learn from one another.
We do learn from one another, make connections, and we've got our little cohort groups, and it was nice to sit down at the table. It was 2 of them work in a district that I graduated from. So yeah, it's good to make those connections. Sometimes this job can be isolating. So.
Any questions for Lori? Okay, 8.0 is a report of the Tri-County Board meeting, and Joanne, this was on track to be the fastest ever. We actually approved a related services evaluation instrument and a job description for the homebound teacher. And we really, then we had to have 25 minutes of executive session, which slowed us down. But there was nothing on the agenda, and it took just minutes to get through it. So now we're ready for the building principals reports, and
I think Mr. Swanson and Mr. Barkus are out there.
Is Mr. Swanson and Mr. Barkus there? They come.
I think they're out there.
I did have a question, Mike.
Yes, sir.
On the Tri-County, you saw Steve Feenan's shop out there.
Yes.
Did they agree to do anything more to help him?
The budgets for all of those programs are set, and they will look at it for next year, but they can't do anything for this year.
Mike,
You're up.
You're on.
Mr. Swanson got called to the auditorium. Oh,
Here he is.
there it is right there.
I ran to get to read your name. Anybody believe I ran sometimes I didn't my board report? Okay, so a few things. Fine arts concerts, orchestra and choir concerts. If you came to those last couple of weeks, those were really, really good. If you missed those, you have one more opportunity as band is presenting on Wednesday. They have their concert. And speaking of choir, if you're here for choir, you saw how full that auditorium was. Beyond full. So Mr. Burke is making plans with Municipal Auditorium to have their next 2 concerts there. Their May concert, there's a conflict at Municipal, and he's got some ideas in the works. And hopefully I'll share that with you at the next meeting once we get those plans finalized. It was exciting to hear the KSB folks talk about adulting and IPS, because those are 2 things on our radar right now. On Friday, our high school staff worked with Zello, which replaces career cruising, and it's something the kids will be on. We hope to get it going in January. We want to roll it out to the kids in January, but it is one of the approved IPSs the state of Kansas has. So we're working hard to try and get that going. I've enjoyed playing around on the demo student side. You can pretend you're a kid and you can go do all the exploring that Zello has, and there's some really cool things in it. Apply Kansas is tomorrow. That's for our seniors. They'll be filling out FAFSA with their parents, and they'll be doing scholarship applications with college reps in the community room. Trying to catch my breath. Adulting Day is set for November 14th. We are moving forward with it. We talked last spring that I was trying to get that going. We just kind of ran out of time, especially in the spring. But we have it set for November. I've got, probably 8 to 10 community members that have agreed to come in and do topics. It's not career day, it's adulting day. It's things that you need to be able to do when you're an adult. Like I have someone from Tom Davis coming to talk to us about how to buy a car. Jennifer Eisinger is going to talk to the kids about how to file taxes. All those things that you have to do as adults that we think kids should know. I did get some input from some students. I just got that this morning, so I'll be working on that versus the list that we have from staff and trying to merge and maybe take some things out based on kids saying, we really don't want to do that. So we may be taking some things out and then adding some things the kids want. I'll share that with Site Council on Wednesday. And Site Council will get to take a look at it and go, those are really good. Have you thought about, maybe they can add some things. What I really want Site Council to be able to do is maybe give us some names of community people. If we've got something on there and there's a hole next to the name, like we don't know who's going to do it, it'd be great to have some input from Site Council on, hey, you need to talk to so-and-so. I've already shared it with Cole as site council president, and he's already volunteered to do one of the sessions. He's a confirmed speaker at Adulting Day. Got a keynote speaker coming in. It's going to talk about social media do's and don'ts, especially the side of using social media to brand yourself or to sell yourself instead of using it as just a say whatever you want type thing. And then finally, our chess team participated at Cherryvale this weekend, and we had a first place individualist. Will Derflinger got first place as an individual, so he was really excited about that. And then we had AJ and Eli and Aiden Smith were the other 3 kids that Rob, you're up.
Our fall sports are winding down. Our volleyball team travels to Coffeyville tomorrow, and then they go to Atchison Saturday, 1 o'clock start for a regional volleyball. Regional cross country is in Chanute this Saturday, starts at 10 a.m. Football's got 2 games guaranteed left, depending on how we do. That's Friday, and then the next Friday we could play a little longer. Tennis this weekend, Grayson Freeze finished 11th. Jaden Schultz and Lauren Ferris also qualified for state, but they lost 2 matches in tiebreakers, so they didn't medal. We're getting ready to start winter sports November 18th. So we're gearing up for that next.
Eric, how many people are on your site council?
We would run about 7. One of them, like Tamara Harrison was on it, and she was a secretary last year. I'll reach out to Tamara. She got an email. I haven't heard back from her. Now she's a community member. She doesn't work up there. We have a teacher, Tabitha's a counselor, and then Olivia, Cole, Robin Thomas,
Fina, she's coming.
Jordan Keithley was coming. Was that?
Fina?
Yes, Fina Taylor was on it last year. And I know Cole's reached out to Larson.
Renee.
Oh, I can't remember.
Renee.
Renee Larson, yes. And inviting her to be on it. So we have anywhere from 8 to 10 to 12 at any given meeting.
But I got to visit Garfield today, and the people that were on our planning committee or strategic planning, we do need to get them inside the schools, because what I saw today at Garfield with the STEM project that they were doing, they're making catapults and shooting eyeballs. I mean, it was learning and it was fun, and that's one of the things that the people also said that have learning is fun. And that was definitely, but I mean, math
That was a theme at my table.
Was
Learning needs
it?
to be
Yeah.
fun, yep.
And there, when I went to the middle school last year in Mrs. Piva's room, whenever I go, I always see something that's really, really good. So I just think we should really start encouraging, starting with our site council people, just to say, if you know something's going on, go see it. And you don't have I wasn't introduced, I just and I think it's harder for a parent to walk in, but if they could, just make them feel comfortable and go watch something, because we do have a lot of good things going on.
Any other questions, comments for these 2 gentlemen? Thank you very much. You can run back to the other way now. Mr. Cox, Mr. Taylor?
Well, it's been a busy end of the first 9 weeks, and today was the first day, knock on wood, a smooth start to the second 9 weeks. I know that Micaiah has to go here shortly, so I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Gordon to introduce her really quickly so she can get on her way.
All right, so Micaiah had the most nominations this week. She had the most nominations this month. She's a new student from Kansas City, and so she's come in and she's made an impact with our staff. Micaiah is a new Viking this year. She's always working hard and treating others with kindness. We are lucky to have her as a Viking. The other nomination said, as a new student to our district, Micaiah has made what seems to be a smooth adjustment to our Viking nation. She continually demonstrates the Viking way. Thank you, Micaiah. Place to be.
Absolutely. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. See you later. Bye. See ya.
She's been really sweet.
Mom had to go back to work, so she left, and then Dad was done with soccer, so he came over to pick her
Right,
up.
so, yeah, you see all the brothers,
Yeah.
sisters out there watching.
So, positive contacts, we're big about positive contacts. Last year at this same time frame, we had 986. As of today, we were up to 1,102 positive contacts. That's including our conferences that we just had, making sure that we're doing all of those things to reach out to the community. I had a conversation with a teacher the other day about making sure that they're reaching out, because most often in education, when they get a call from the school, it's usually they fear the negative side of things. So we're trying to change that perception by having those positive interactions. One of the things that's helping with that is that new App2G app that the district has introduced and we're using. That has made posting to our websites, Twitter, and Facebook so much easier for administration, for the teachers to post, and that has made a big impact with the number of people that we have following us at the middle school. We're up to about 812 people at this point following us at the middle school, and thanks to you all for sharing the posts that we send out there. I see names on there frequently of people sharing out things, so thank you so much. We've also started a new thing with our yearbook and newspaper group. They decided they wanted to try doing video announcements at the middle school. So every week, they start out on Monday, they write a script, they film it, and they've gotten really good. We've got
sharper and sharper every week.
This week, we've got a really nice introduction to it. It's all professionally done, or it appears to be. It's really nice, Ms. Robson, don't take that personally. And the kids really want to do it. I've had kids come to me and ask, can we do this as a full class all year long? I said, well, we'll work on that as we move forward. But they're enjoying that experience, and it's really made an impact on them. So those are things that we do. We put it on our Facebook, we put it on our YouTube channel, and every Friday the teachers get to watch that with the kids. Our conference results from the first and the second, we were up 18% from last year in springtime. Last spring, we had 50% participation. We are at 68% participation for fall this year. We really sold that, put it out on Facebook, made a lot of calls, and we got people in the building, and we were really excited about that. We participated in the National Anti-Bullying Month. We had a week devoted to random acts of kindness. We had several staff and students that were nominated for doing good things within our building, not just because that's what we do there. We treat each other how we want to be treated. We are also getting ready to do our planning for our quarterly life skills class. Last spring, in May, we had a life skills class where we had 22 to 24 classes teaching basic life skills, how to count change, how to change a tire, jumpstart a car, make a grilled cheese sandwich.
Tie a tie.
Tie a tie. And so we decided that it was a good experience for our kids, and we thought that it was going to be a good experience to have this year. So we sat at our leadership team today and discussed having it for second, third, and fourth quarters, one day where we, instead of doing a Friday free time, we participate in that activity, giving the kids an opportunity. So by the time they're freshmen in high school, they would have had at least 15 to 16 different opportunities to participate in these classes. So that's a good thing. We're getting ready to send out our student survey. That's the survey that tells us who we have relationships with in our building. That's going out next week. And we're getting ready to host on November 5th, our 4th annual Gourmet Hot Dog Night. You're all invited to come out and enjoy time and eat hot dogs and try some of the blue and gold dogs with the blueberry sauce and the mustard. Delicious. Sounds weird, but it's delicious. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Gordon.
Athletics and activities. Football, 8th grade avenged a loss to Pittsburgh last week, which moved them to 4-2 on the season. We finished the football season up against Fort Scott this Thursday. Girls basketball began last week. We have a new coach taking over the program this year. He's off to a good start with 32 girls on the roster. Their first game is on November 5th against Coffeyville for the Gourmet Hot Dog Night. Chess is still at about 15 participants. They won the Arma Chess Tournament. Lucas and Davis both went 6-0 in Cherryvale. with class leadership, we're hosting Frontenac on Tuesday on 10/29 to continue the programs and developing positive change within our building.
Who's our new basketball coach? I forget.
His name is Bill Baird, and he's out of Western Kansas. I'm not going to think of the specific town. It's near Liberal.
Deerfield?
Deerfield, yeah.
Yeah. Any questions, comments? Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Shelley, I guess you're by yourself tonight.
I guess I'm first day.
The Lone Elementary.
Well, exciting things are happening at Lincoln. The first 9 weeks went great, except for it went really quick. Kindergarten had Science Day, and they talked about motion. They had push and pull, and Mrs. Kennett's husband brought a truck, so they got to go out and see that. Preschool and kindergarten went to the pumpkin patch, and they learned about the life cycle of a pumpkin. There'll be no AM preschool tomorrow because of conferences for the preschool. So just the AM, but the PM still is going to come. October 25th, Queen Red's going to visit Lincoln for Red Ribbon Week. She's going to kick it off for us. 2 preschool classes are going to be going to Good Samaritan on Halloween. They called and wondered if we had some trick-or-treaters that could come. And so we're going to take 2 preschool classes to go through and walk through and visit with the residents. And then our parade is going to start at 2 o'clock. We walk kind of downtown. We go to like the fire department, the police department. And so we'll walk that. And then our parties are going to start at 2:40. So we're going to be really busy until the end of the month.
Any questions or comments? Thank you, Shelley. You all have reports in front of you from Mr. Freese.
I have a suggestion. When we have a student that receives an award, instead of, why wouldn't we put them as the first 6.0? So they don't have to stay here 45 minutes.
Just move them up.
We could do that. Sure.
That is smart. Yeah.
That's a good idea.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we're to 10.0, which is acceptance of donations. And we have a pretty good bunch this time.
We do, on page 37. So here we have, all right, Garfield PTO donated mini grants for the teachers valued at $1,000. So those were their donations for the month of September. At Lincoln, the following donations were made. Mrs. Peak had a Scholastic book donors, and those are all listed for a total of $193. Jackie Cobble, 24, Shelley Kroger, 24, Kimberly Clark, 24, Clara Killingsworth, 25, Linda Prell, 24, Mary Stoffer, 48, and Kim Markham, 24, for that total of $193. Mrs. Hicks had Scholastic book donors as well for a total of $137, and that was Ginger Powell for 20, Kirby Ray for 20, Lori Ray for 19, Cecilia Doogie for 20, Debbie Ryan for 20, Pam Willis for 19, Trinity Davis for 19 for that total of $137. And then PTO did the mini grants as well for the teachers at $1,400. So there was a total of $1,730 at Lincoln. And I just want to clarify, the book donors, what you do is you make the donation and then the teacher orders a book. So every student in the classroom gets a new book that month. So that's what those are. Guthridge PTO donated for the teacher mini grants at $1,400 total. And Faith United Methodist Church made a donation for teacher supplies valued at $240. So that's donations at $1,640 at Guthridge. At the middle school, there was a donation for the Viking store made by Andrea and Jed Hetlinger for $50. Those were their donations for the month. Parsons High School, Roger Gironi made a donation for the junior class and booster club, hot dogs and supplies and all of that, valued at $308.52. Bowen Pharmacy donated to boys basketball the black polo shirts, valued at $1,128.41. There were anonymous donors for FCCLA's Don Barkas benefit, valued at $1,238. Stevens vending machines, the positive reinforcement program is what those were for, valued at $9.33. The Interact Club received an anonymous donation of $390.47. Ernesto's Mexican Restaurant donated to the Cheer Program $30. Wall Funeral Home donated to the Cheer Program $50. Verdale Rust donated to the football program $100. And for Honor Flight Program, there were anonymous donors totaling $3,692. So that's a total of $6,946.73 at Parsons High School. So all of the September donations to the district totaled $11,366.73. So just like always, we have a very generous community.
What's the Interact Club?
The Interact Club is a club at the high school that they have that is it's new. It was just new last year. And I want to say it has something to do with Rotary.
Yeah, it's like a junior Rotary.
It is like a junior Rotary.
Oh, okay.
Good, I'm glad you were still there. But I did know, I have visited with that group before, so.
Good, I had a
that's-
question for him too.
Oh, well, good. Well, there he is.
I noticed we had hired some people to be newspaper folks to have school newspapers. And then when I talked to Eric, he said we can't have a high school newspaper because there's a little glitch from the State Department.
We don't have anybody that's certified in journalism, and they don't offer that as an endorsement anymore. You have to have a major in it. And we don't have anybody with that, so we're going to offer it extracurricular. Only one student was able to do it extracurricular, so we decided not to do it. Because they need, to do it like they wanted to do like an online publication, you need more than one writer, obviously.
Well, that needs to be fixed.
Okay.
No, when Peter Cook was here, he said he would come in when he was the publisher of the newspaper and he would help out. How could a state say something, well, he's not qualified, well, he's a publisher of a newspaper. So what I'm saying is, we want our kids to become writers. Some want to get into newspaper business. And then the State Department says, well, you have to be certified. But I also thought that for 3 years, you could have a transition degree if you're working on it.
That I don't know.
I don't know that either. There are some transition to teaching programs. I'm not sure one specific to
So in
journalism.
other words, all public schools in Kansas that have a school newspaper, that teacher is a certified journalism major. Is that what you're saying?
They're supposed to be.
Or have so many hours, they probably wouldn't have to be a major, would
They
they?
have to have a degree in
Oh,
journalism.
really?
And
A
that's
journalism
what it is
degree?
now.
Wow.
But I think years ago, that hasn't always been.
That's true.
Yeah.
And so,
Huh.
so.
Because you could just go get endorsed in it.
Right,
Now that's
so
not-
there could be, the majority of programs probably have people who have been there for a number of years or have been there long enough just to have an endorsement. Don't have
There's
to-
got to be another way to have our students have an in-house paper. Doesn't have to call it what you want.
They made that harder.
That's sad, that's all I'm saying. It's not your fault.
That's good.
I'll be talking to Colleen Williamson tomorrow.
Okay.
So those were the donations to the schools there on page 37.
Would accept a motion to approve or accept the donations?
So moved.
Moved by Jeff,
Second.
second by Lou. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried 7-0. Mr. Burke has action on out-of-state school choir. Brian Branson, is he here?
Is he out there?
Is he out?
Right?
No.
No.
He's in the auditorium.
He's in the auditorium with the music. So how about if can we skip that and move to the next?
Sure. Go see if he's around.
That'd be
Yeah,
great.
yeah, we'll-
Thank you.
He's around. Let me see if he-
We'll move on to 10.2, which is discussion on possible intercom system. Ben, you're up.
Good evening.
Good evening, Ben.
I have some security concerns on our current intercom system, so I'm planning on talking to you guys a little bit in executive session about it. It's kind of basically what I'm looking for tonight is, if I don't know our current money situation, so, and I know I'm throwing around big numbers here. So if we don't have the funding, I need to know now whether I need to even bother to go and bid this out or not. But I got some multiple vendors. I talked to 6 different vendors. Basically started with the biggest ones, worked my way down, and got some ballpark quotes. These are not actionable quotes. These are, sight unseen. I sent them a lot of pictures, sent them maps, that kind of thing. And so
This is what we're looking at for the intercom system. We have such an antiquated intercom system. A lot of areas don't work. A lot of buildings aren't on it. That really, it's from a security standpoint, we need to get it back up and running, and we can either spend the money on the 20-plus-year-old system, especially at the grade schools, to get it just barely back up and operational, or we can get something that actually works.
And these actual ballpark bids, this is for all of the buildings, not just
Correct, this is district-wide.
District-wide, so that is incorrect in the board.
Are these wireless systems?
None of these are wireless systems.
Have you looked into wireless systems?
They're too expensive.
That's not what I found.
Everything that I've looked at with wireless in terms of the expense and then the reliability sometimes is an issue. I talked to some places that had them. So, and it's kind of one of those things where I would entertain a wireless bid, I guess, but I'd prefer not to use that system.
So do all classrooms have telephones, wired telephones?
Now, yes.
In every building?
Yes. So the way, and I'll talk about this more in executive session, just kind of the way our system works now and how it'll work in the future. So I can kind of expound on that there. But the way everyone's moving towards and the way we do it currently in the grade schools, you can't buy a system of how it works right now. So, and VoIP phones are coming next year.
That's the voice over the internet phones.
Correct.
The VoIP that we had talked about last year.
No one will support us anymore. Our current vendor said they're doing the 1-3-year contract and they're out. So, but if we get a good enough intercom system, you have to treat them as separate issues. Right now, the phone system is the intercom system, depending on what building you're talking about. No one sells that anymore. So, but if we get the nice intercom system, then we can downplay the phones. So we don't have to get the mid-level phone with all the features, the unattended pickup, like kind of what they do now at the grade schools. We would instead use the intercom system. So, and again, talked with the safety committee and all the principals, and as far as I can tell, they're all on board with getting a complete system overhaul. I mean, and just I'm coming from a safety perspective, but even as a feature perspective, like changing the bells at the high school or the middle school right now is, I don't even know if we can change the middle school bells right now. But the high school bells, we have to unplug equipment, plug it back in, cross fingers, make phone calls. And anytime we have any areas of speakers go out, we have to contact vendors that then basically eBay parts because they don't make them anymore. So what we're looking at doing is going to a system that all the schools are the same. We're definitely looking towards the features at the bottom, an easy interface, the ability to, basically do an intercom call from your cell phone, which is, we couldn't even dream of doing that right now. Just, again, things of that nature, and I can expound on the actual safety features. I'm just talking price right now.
So basically, you want permission to get.
Yeah, these are so we're looking from the 200,000. I wouldn't, vendor B, I think, was kind of shooting for the moon there. But we're looking probably realistically after everything's bought, everything's done. I originally planned in my budget for 100,000, just as a guess out there, because these took so long to get back to me because no one would give me a ballpark quote without maps, without pictures of this, without more information. So I was unfortunately pretty far off on that. So we're probably looking at realistically $250,000.
But what you're asking for now is for the board to.
The ability to bid, if you guys will entertain me going and bidding this out.
And so, and part of that bid would be that anyone that would bid, wouldn't they come to the district?
Correct.
Through the buildings?
Yeah, we'd make an on-site visit mandatory in that 28-day bidding window.
Right.
So that there's no sight unseen final bids, because then they get here and they'll go, oh, this isn't what we thought it was going to be, or anything like that. And we're asking for installation to be included as well, because we're talking about running a new cable to every classroom, either just in the grade schools or in the entire district.
I thought our classrooms had cables in them.
Cable as in like coax, like television? They do, but no one uses that for intercom functionality. And a lot of those have been trimmed back or cut or gotten rid of. Really, only the office areas have actual coax cables run to them for TV signal.
So, but you planned $100,000 in the initial budget is what you thought.
Correct.
It's going to be,
It's going to be another 150 on top of that if I had to guess on an actual actionable bid that we would get. And I'm hoping it doesn't go up, I mean, the cheapest bid we may get is $400,000 once people come out here. I don't know, but this gets us in, this is what I'm getting in the ballpark.
So what does everybody think?
Well, what happened to the idea that we were going to prioritize once we got through with the maintenance deal, and we were going to prioritize our items and then look at things, how much they cost? I mean, we can get through this year, correct?
We're struggling.
Well, but, I mean, I never hear of anything.
Correct, and again, there's a lot of things that I can expound on in executive session that don't have to deal with pricing, that have to deal with the security issue, so.
Well, we also have security issues with other things too. So it's just what I'm saying. I thought we were going to have, the board was going to sit down and prioritize what we're, and you're coming here with a $250,000 deal, easy.
well, and
You see, and that's what I wasn't because I think that's more of a maintenance thing, because again, I assume that we already talked about, because I kind of owned this. I took this over because it needed to happen. So that's why it was in my original budget.
And we talked about it last year. It had been something that
Mhm.
the board felt like, okay, let's wait and look at that for next year. And so then that was a part of his technology plan. And then the board said, oh, let's take a step back here. Why don't you let us know how much that will actually,
And that's what I'm here doing
Closer,
now,
right.
now that I've actually
And
talked
so-
with vendors.
And Ben did call me in. I'm on the technology committee, and I was surprised. I
I
think
was
we all are about how much it is. And I did go back and look at the 5-year plan that he did present, and, for this year, he does have intercom system, and like you said, we can get through with this year, but I almost think it's kind of a safety feature that we need to look at. So if we just give him permission to get the bids, it doesn't mean that we have to okay it, right?
that is
And I don't know if we want to go to executive session first, and then when we come back, you take action on it too. I mean, that's completely up to you guys.
Well, I want to hear what you have to say about these issues.
Yeah, so let's table,
Okay.
or not.
How much time do you think you're going to need with that? We'll do that later on. How much time?
It's I don't know, probably actually like 10 minutes, and then whatever responses from you guys, so.
Okay. Well, let's just defer until later in the meeting then.
We'll adjourn till later
After
then.
executive
Okay, all right, thank you very much.
Okay, is
Did Mr. Burke make it
Mr.
over
Burke
for
back
music?
yet?
I was supposed to give him a 5-minute warning.
Okay, we'll go to 10.3. There's a discussion and action on immunization religious exemption form.
So this was in your packet on Friday. I brought other copies if you'd like it. This was something that the nurse brought to our attention, but thought it would be good for parents who do choose to have their children not immunized, whether that be for health reasons or for religious purposes, that are aware that in the event of an outbreak of a vaccine-preventable disease, their child would be excluded from school so that they don't.
And then the
Get
timeline
that
on that
disease.
was kind of very indefinite, depending on how
Right.
bad the.
Just depending upon, so.
So is this intended for annually?
Right, yes, it would be, it's an annual written statement. Because every year, when they come and enroll, if they haven't immunized, and if there's an immunization that's due, they have to have something that they give. It's either from their physician or their own religious exemption form. So this would go along with that.
So is this the first year for this?
This would be the first year for this letter that parents would sign. This isn't the first year. We've had years where parents, for religious purposes or for health purposes, a child may have some other health issue that prevents them from getting vaccines, or for religious purposes, they choose not to vaccinate. And so those things, that's
So
not.
is this a 503 policy or state policy?
No, this is just something that's recommended by the nurse, so that parents who
So
don't.
it's a 503 policy?
The bottom part in here is the state law.
Right. It
Well,
gives
that's what I was asking.
Yeah, this gives you the state law, and then the top is what we would like to be
All right,
503.
so it's a state law. That's what I want to get clarified.
But it's not a state law that we have to give them this, no.
No.
This is just our option,
Right.
but it's not a policy, correct?
It's not a
We're
policy
just-
till you guys vote to make it a policy, you're right. So the immunization rules are right down here at the bottom, those are the state statutes, that's how that works. And then this portion up here would be a 503 policy.
So if we don't vote for it, they don't get immunized, they're not part of the student body?
No, they're still part of the student body, but if this is really an acknowledgement for parents so that they know ahead of time, okay, for religious purposes or health purposes, I choose not to immunize, which is their choice. That means, though, if there is an outbreak of a vaccine preventable disease, that means that my child will be prevented from coming to school. It's just an acknowledgement of that, to protect their child's health and the health of others in the buildings. That way, no one can say, well, wait a minute, you have whooping cough, or you have pertussis, or why does my kid have to be out of school for 2 or 3 weeks? And if they've done this, then they've gotten that information and they understand.
Any other questions? Is there a motion to approve this policy?
Lou, do you have a problem with the letter? or-
So basically anyone can sign this, because you can't ask them what religion they are.
Right.
No, if they have signed, they would turn in, if they choose not to vaccinate, and they do
So
that.
basically, it's a family that chooses not to vaccinate.
Vaccinate.
And we're saying religious reasons.
Well, because the state statute says you can either say for religious purposes, you choose not to vaccinate. That's the state statute. So the parent would say, for religious purposes, I choose not to vaccinate. Or if there's a health reason they can't vaccinate, then you get a letter from the doctor each year.
Right, as long as we're protected, that's all I'm.
I mean, and it is about protecting, all of the students.
Okay, that's fine.
I would make a motion to approve the immunization religious exemption letter.
Motion by David. Have a second?
Second.
Jeff? Second by Jeff. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Carries 7-0. Okay, now I'll jump back up to 10.1. Mr. Burke, you're up.
Hi, I was at rehearsal, sorry.
You're busy.
Yes.
Getting ready for the musical. It's exciting.
I'm here just to talk briefly about the music company trip again to Silver Dollar City. This year would just be music company, as I have in the spring, I'll have 51 in there. And that's a busload. And I've talked with Silver Dollar City directly about trying to lower the cost for our kids who are performing there. So I've kind of struck, it's going to be fun. We're going to do like a flash mob choir around the park several times that day. And that's going to cut us $30 a kid. So it costs $45 instead of, well, it's close to 80 for this year. That we were paying the company to set up the stuff for us. Roger knows what I'm talking about because he's been there. And Lori's been there too. So I'm pretty excited about that. And as I came last year, I'm only really requesting for the out-of-state trip and then the cost for a bus, for what we would pay our bus drivers to go towards compensating a charter bus. So last year I came, I didn't ask for all of the charter bus, just what we figured would be what we're paying a bus. Now, of course, we own our own buses now, so don't throw things at me by wanting to use a charter bus. And I don't know what that figure would be now that we own our own. But with 50, we'd be needing probably to take 2 buses if we took our own. And we could get on one bus, a charter bus. So, yup.
How much did they charge, how much did you pay last, well, you took.
We took one bus, but that was because we had so many kids who were in orchestra as well.
Right.
An orchestra and band, I believe, are looking at doing their own trip to Kansas City, looking into maybe going to a symphony concert and checking out Woodwind Brasswind up there and Casey Strings. So that may be coming down the pike here. But since we all can fit on that one bus, that's what we did. And that was about 1,400.
Yeah.
It was about that. So it's a long day. It's fun. We're looking at April 22nd. So kids love it. The chance to perform in different areas will be kind of neat.
Yeah, that really will.
So kind of all rounded out here pretty well.
Because I think it's much better, because what they were charging the kids last year
Was for a PA
70
speaker,
bucks.
basically.
Which is basically,
Full admission.
they were perform,
Right.
plus they gave them a meal, but, and they only got to perform, what, 15 minutes?
Right. And if we were bringing a 100-piece band or something, then they bring chairs and stands and all of this stuff. But for a choir, you just stand there is kind of ridiculous. So kind of made this deal with them to do that.
That'd be great for kids.
How much does it cost us to operate those buses?
See, and I didn't get that figure.
Well, I mean, it'll be the 15 hours, $15 an hour per driver, and then the gasoline there and
So
back.
it'd be
But- and we
15, actually be 30, because you're taking two buses, so it'd be
So
$30 an hour.
So it'd be $30, and it's
And we're
it's a
talking
long
a
trip. What do you leave at? 4,
5?
5 in the morning and get home at 5?
8 or 9.
Oh, it'll be late. Oh, yeah.
It's a long day.
So it's like a 14-hour day.
It's like a
So if you take a
14-hour
14-hour day, you know.
Times 30.
That times 30 right there, just for the cost, and that wouldn't include the fuel or the, you know.
Have you checked on prices on the charter yet?
The charter is just a little bit more than that. Should be about 1,500. So.
I think we pay that whole charter, in my opinion.
And is there only one company in this area that's close to us that'll do it?
Yeah, I mean, I just went with the people we used last year.
Okay.
So.
They're the ones that
So
have
did we do this last year?
Yes.
We
We did pay for the whole thing last year,
About the
but I
same
didn't want to
amount,
come and be like,
yeah.
hey, pay for a charter. So.
Yeah.
So the students are gonna pay for their own?
Students are paying for their own, but it's $30 cheaper a kid.
Right.
That's
which is
great.
right.
Yeah.
Now, do they have to buy their own lunch now?
The lunch is included.
The lunch included.
We were paying $30 just for that company. Yeah.
That's a pretty good.
In a different venue, I want to say something. You, your wife, the band director, obviously have increased our fine arts programs. Mr. Swanson just told us that you have standing room only for your concerts.
Couldn't get in the door. It was a great night.
And then what the community says, they're very supportive of the fine arts programs, and they'd like to see it expanded. So my question to you is that something that you foresee in the next year or two, where you may need another person or two?
Thanks for putting me on the spot. So where Lauren and I are, we're pretty okay. Our big issue, I think, is at the elementary level and making sure our elementary.
And that's what the parents were saying.
A lot of school districts, they see music twice a week or longer, and our kids see music once a week, 2nd through 5th grade, for 40 minutes. They don't have a room, they don't have a set designated music room. Well, the designated music room at Guthridge, for instance, is the safe room, which is used for hearing tests or dental screenings or, and so then they share with the science room sometimes. And then, of course, the science room is used too. So I think those things, especially at Guthridge, are like the biggest thing that we're dealing with right now.
Right,
and then also trying to get more time at the elementaries. So, I mean, if you were looking at personnel, I would say it would be another,
Elementary music.
gosh, it'd be another elementary person, and then maybe to pick up a little bit at the middle school. So yeah, that's something that we can discuss more later with some more thought, but
Because right now, we currently have one elementary music teacher, and then it's full-time, I mean, that's what she does now. She teaches an hour of Spanish at the middle school first, and then she teaches music the rest of the day. And then we have Mr. Stark, who teaches all of our band, but then he teaches
and Guthridge.
sections at Guthridge of music.
And he does
as well.
after-school band at Guthridge.
So he could do maybe
At the
some band, maybe at a different
So
time.
then they
if
get
there
it
was
more
another.
than, I mean, if they do after school, then they get it more than once a week?
That's,
Well, one is vocal and one is band.
well, one is, all elementary is general music. So it's
Right.
singing, it's learning some instruments, that's why we have the recorder there a lot of the time. And there are programs that start a choir at 4th and 5th grade level, and do a youth choir and things like that. So,
But what
Yeah.
I'm getting, also what I'm getting at is your programs are open to all students.
Correct.
No matter where they come from, period.
Or whether you can sing or not. Make a choice.
did you mention at all about venue, the
I said we
situation?
have a surprise maybe for the May concert. but
Once we get all that, once we get all those details.
Well, yeah, I mean, I already have it, that's fine. I will say the band concert is Wednesday night, you probably said that, and then make sure that the Holiday Favorites concert is December the 12th, it's a Thursday night, and then I'm really excited about March 11th. That is, we're going to do a major work. The high school is, along with the grand chorus, accompanied by a orchestra, by members of an orchestra with percussion and all kinds of things. It's the first time in probably 30 years that we've done a major work, and that will be at the municipal building on March 11th. So I'm really excited about that.
We have a lot
Choir
of
nerd.
really good things going on in fine arts.
Yeah.
You're doing good work.
All right, if there aren't any more questions, I would move that we approve item 10.1.
I second it.
Because, is that just, right now we're approving the trip, and what about the fees? What are we talking about on fees?
I thought they were going to bring their own, they were going to pay for themselves.
I'm sorry, the transportation fees. Are we
You paying for the charter
Yeah.
again?
Pay for the charter?
Yeah,
Yes.
that's,
Okay,
yeah,
all right.
yeah.
That's what, I thought that's what the motion
Yeah.
said, but I want to be sure.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, a motion by Lou, a second by Roger to approve the trip to Branson and pay the transportation fees for the charter company. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Go back to practice.
Okay, we're down to 10.4, was executive sessions. I'm going to recommend we break this into 3 parts. Yes, sir.
Before you go to executive session, just, as I know you're going to talk about intercoms and bells, at the high school, our intercom system is really, really, really old. We get someone to come work on it once a year. That's all we get the people to come out here is once a year because it's so old. And I joke it's because they have to hook a Commodore 64.
Can I interject one sec?
Yeah.
Can we have the building administrators that are on hand just go
Yeah,
into
that's a good
executive
idea.
session?
Oh,
You bet.
good idea.
You bet.
Good idea.
Okay.
Can we take a restroom break?
Okay, we're going to take a 5-minute recess, and then we'll come back into executive session, come back and make some motion to go to executive session. So 5 minutes, we'll be back in session at 7:30, please. I'm sorry, I looked at that one, 7:32, we'll be back in session. Okay, we're back in session. We're back in session. Joanne will be here in just a minute. So we'll kind of, what I want to suggest to us is that we break our executive session into three parts. We have three separate executive sessions. One for probably 15 minutes with Ben and Kimber Intercom System, and then a 15-minute session with Mrs. Ray for issues you have, and then another 20 minutes with to discuss the evaluation of the superintendent. We do those in three different sessions. So at this point in time, I would entertain a motion from someone to go into executive session for 15 minutes for security matters.
So moved.
Motion by Joanne, second by Roger. Go to executive session for 15 minutes for the purpose of security matters, to discuss security matters, ensure the security of the schools. We'll go into session at 7:32 for 15 minutes with the board, the administration, the superintendent, the assistant superintendent, and the two building principals who are in the building. And Mr. McGuire. Any
He's muting still.
Anybody, any discussion? All in favor? Opposed, same sign. Okay, 15 minutes, turn your microphones off.
start getting my request for proposal together, and we can get that 28-day bidding window going and on-site visits and all that fun stuff, so.
But hopefully they could do it during the summer.
That's what
That's the plan.
That's what I was asking.
Or maybe even start, maybe able to do middle school and high school during winter break. If they're just brains, we'll figure it out, so.
Okay, we are back in session. We had item 10.2 was on the agenda, which we had skipped over until after we had this executive session. So at this point in time, do we want to give Ben the permission to move forward with this, to get the...
Well, to get the bids,
To
like
get the bids,
Joanne
yes, to
said.
get the bids, yes.
I would make a motion for Ben to get the bids and
Okay,
come back
motion by Lou,
with some more information.
Second.
second by Joanne. Any discussion? All in
Okay,
favor?
one last thing.
Yes, sir.
Your mic is on.
They don't care if I don't.
Thank you.
So we take the bids. Is this gonna be the bid with the phone?
No.
I'm not even looking at phones right now. They're
Okay,
two
so-
completely separate issues.
I understand, but, so one of these companies won't do the phones, that'll be a.
They may try to throw phones in there, but again, it's all about that request for proposal, however tight I can make it.
Okay.
And requiring an on-site visit, and, that'll allow us to, if we want to say, if you include phones and you don't include a no phone option, we could reject you.
Yeah, but that, like David said, you want to,
I would tie these things together. I'd at least
Yeah.
throw the phone down
So-
there.
It's an option at
As
least.
an option.
Bid option.
Option A.
yeah.
And see, and that's then, because we're gonna get there's gonna be a lot of options. You're gonna have vendor one, option A, B, C, D, E, F, G.
Well, we'll figure it out.
Because every speaker is different, how you run it's different, the brains, so.
Any other questions or discussion? Okay, we'd have a motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Carries 7-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now we need to have an executive session. You think 15 minutes to do it?
I think 15 minutes. would be
15 minutes
my part.
for personnel, non-elected personnel. 15 minutes of, we've included that one.
Linda and I.
Linda, Lori, and the board. Accept the motion.
Make a motion.
Second.
Executive session, discuss confidential employee information, protected non-elected personnel exception or coma. For a period of 15 minutes, enter 7:50, come back here, open session 8:05.
Second by Joanne. Any discussion? And again, the motion included having the superintendent, assistant superintendent included. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Carries 7-0. Ready to move into the session, about 20 minutes, just figure 20 minutes to discuss the evaluation of the superintendent with the board present only.
Move we go into executive session to discuss confidential employee information pursuant to non-elected personnel exception or coma for a period of 20 minutes commencing 8:06, returning back here, open session 8:26, just the board.
Second it.
Motion by Jeff, second by Olivia, executive session for 20 minutes. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, we're back in session. We're ready for item 10.5, action on personnel.
Okay. We've got these recommendations for employment. Cato Barmiller is middle school assistant track coach effective the 1920 school season. Crystal Deal is a middle school evening custodian effective September 26th of 19. Dave Ferguson is a substitute bus driver this school year 1920. Robin Fuentes is a substitute bus driver effective 1920. Andy Hopper, high school boys assistant basketball coach effective the 1920 season. Mary Myers, high school guidance office secretary and registrar effective September the 25th, 2019. Then on the back page, Wendy Neff, middle school 8th grade math teacher effective January the 6th, 2019. Nate Strathy, middle school head golf coach effective the 1920 season. Amanda Wood, substitute bus monitor effective the 1920 school year. And then we had one resignation, and I'm trying to think, where's my, here it is, right here. One resignation for employment, Jim Luber's bus driver effective October the 18th, 2019.
Wait a minute, we aren't taking all those together, are we? We ought to separate out the resignation separate.
Okay, we can separate out the resignation.
Okay, so we had the
Resignation
first
for employees.
initial recommendations for employment. That was Cato, Crystal, Dave, Robin, Andy, Mary, Wendy, Nate, and Amanda. Those were the recommendations for employment.
Okay, I got a question. On Dave Ferguson, is that just for his trips? Is that what that's for?
Or if there were a Saturday trip or something that he wanted to do. But primarily for his trips is why he had gotten that license.
Move to approve. Motion by Jeff,
Second?
second by Joanne, to approve the recommendation for employment. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, carries 7-0. And we have the 10.5 event addendum for resignation.
Had one resignation for employment this month, Jim Luber's bus driver effective October the 18th, 2019.
Move to approve. Motion by Jeff. I'll second it. Can get a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Wait a minute, have a discussion.
Okay, discussion, all right.
I think he's been very fairly untreated in this district. For 30 years of service, there was too many deals, and he wasn't offered trips that he should have been happen. This was a whole mess.
Any other discussion? No discussion, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign?
Aye.
No.
No.
Okay, we're gonna, I'm not sure how many no's we had here. 1, 2, 3. Motion carries 4-3. Okay. Any other business from the board, requests?
We had staff go to a Ruby Payne conference.
Right, we did. And so that's what that, and then they came back last Friday and shared at each of the buildings for the social emotional. And so that, their PowerPoint they sent to me today, I'll put that in your view on Friday. And then in November, people from the social emotional committee will come and talk about the things that they've done first 9 weeks. And
Is the Ruby Payne as the same as the social emotional, or are those two separate conferences? From what I read that we paid for.
okay, we paid for Ruby Payne. So that was a conference that some of the people on our social emotional committees went to.
Because I
Yes.
want to hear specifically about the poverty that they learned at the Ruby Payne
Right, and
conference.
so, and that'll be in the view on Friday. And they can, I mean,
I'd-
their packet.
Yeah, I'd like to be able to ask them some questions. Ruby Payne is
Good research.
very interesting when it comes to talking about poverty. Thanks.
Any other requests? Meeting is adjourned, 8:30. Thank you very much.